Welcome to the Biblical Worldview Show, a ministry of RenewaNation. I am Ben Shetler, and we today are diving into part 2 of an interview I did with the executive director and founder of ScreenStrong, Melanie Hempe. Phenomenal information in our last episode on how to protect our kids, what is happening with things like video games and social media, and how do we move forward as Christians tackling these difficult topics. Part 2 is going to be a phenomenal addition to our last episode. Let's start looking at life through the lens of Scripture. Welcome to the Biblical Worldview Show. You are listening to part 2 of Screens, the Young Brain, and we are with the ultimate person on this issue, the director of ScreenStrong, Melanie Hempe. And if you don't know who she is, it's time to find out, because she will be a phenomenal help to you as a parent that's walking through these issues of screens. How do I help my kids on social media? How do I protect them from pornography? How do I keep them from video game addiction? How do I handle all this stuff? In this episode, we are going to jump into a game plan. And Melanie, we are thrilled that you have decided to join us for part 2. Thank you so much for everything you do to help young people.
Thank you so much for having me back.
All right, we're going to get right to this. Melanie, in part 2, is going to really help us with a game plan. And I hope that you'll also reference a little bit of adults, because there may be some people listening that don't have kids, but we all need to be protected. And I do think that the younger mind obviously is more vulnerable, but you're going to help us a little bit with a game plan. But I found this clip, and I really wanted to get your perspective of what you thought of this. We'll roll it now.
Well, I think one thing that really helped me to start to be a better parent around this is to learn that the dopamine that's secreted in the brain's pleasure center when we get new bits of information and we look at the screens, that center of the brain is most activated when we're kids and we're teenagers. So knowing that they are so pulled into these in a way that we can't even understand has made me not be as angry at them, but realize there's a lot more I need to do as in my parenting.
So these are little electronic drug delivery devices. I know that's a crude way to put it, but that's what you're saying.
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing that there's many studies that look at MRI scans of the brain of kids who play a lot of video games, 20 hours or more of video games a week. And when they compared them to people who are addicted to, say, drugs or alcohol, their brain scans are similar. So something is really happening on a physiological level. It's not just psychological.
We exposed young mice to switching sounds and lights.
In the film, Rustin talks with researchers who are studying what multitasking, switching rapidly back and forth between digital devices, does to the brain function of mice.
Afterwards, we looked at the effect on learning and found that the ability of these young mice to learn new things was very much compromised. It took them 3 times longer or more to learn how to go through a maze than the non-exposed young mice. We're exposing a whole generation of children to these rapid-paced media, and we have no clue what it does to the brain. And if it's the same as we see in the mice, then this is a very shocking news.
So Melanie, what did you think when you saw that? I feel like that's almost what you spent the last episode explaining in greater detail. What did you think of that clip?
Oh, it's absolutely right on. And these are the kinds of things that I started to discover about 8 years ago, honestly. This is not new information, but parents don't know this information, right? And so we're all out there talking about the problem all day long, and nobody's really focusing on the solution. And that's why ScreenStrong exists. So we can help parents understand that. It absolutely is true that the brain, like I said earlier, the young brain has so much more to lose over screen time than the adult brain does. And when you think about the mouse studies, it is really scary, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want to live in fear about all this, but we have to be really practical and we have to understand the facts. And the facts is this is not a benign activity. There's nothing benign about screen time.
Yeah. Oh, no. Well, I also had this thought, too. So when you think of the development of a child, you're training them to do things. And I believe God aligns the brain to receive that training and instruction. And one of the ways he does that is through chemical reward. So like my son is learning to potty train right now, and his brain is very vulnerable to positive and negative cues. So like when he gets done, my wife read this book, and so whenever he gets done going on the potty, he gets a big hug. So now he's like, this is his thing. We hug and then we go wash our hands, which is a bad order. But his brain is queued up that when he does it correctly, I get a hug. And this is the young mind. It is queued up to receive this positive and negative. And when you throw in video games, it's a good thing that we are because it helps us learn, but man, it can be manipulated in a wrong way. Okay, so we really see that perspective. Melanie, what do we do? Give us some of these, what you call simple solutions. And once again, thank you for ScreenStrong. If you're watching this, definitely go and check it out. But what do we do, Melanie?
Well, the first thing you have to do is listen to podcasts like this, right? You have to get out of your, cave, I guess, that you're living in, and that I was living in, I can say for myself. And what I ended up doing with Adam, because everybody says, what happened to Adam? What did you do? Well, we came home. He dropped out of college, which was a real bummer. And he ended up on my sofa playing video games at the age of 19, which, what in the world? That was never going to work. So what I did at that time was what every good mother did at the time. And I called the U.S. Army, and he was recruited into the military, and they came and convinced Adam that he would be able to shoot guns and be like he was in Call of Duty. And it was really kind of funny. But no humor here. I'm really very proud of him. He went into the military for 5 years. And so what ended up happening with him, his brain ended up getting a 14-week detox, which was called basic training, right? He didn't even have his own underwear. He had nothing. He had no phone. He had no video game. He had nothing. And that reset his brain. So the first thing you have to do, I didn't know it was the best thing to do at the time, but I was just panicked. I didn't know what to do with him because I knew that he wasn't going to be living in my house playing video games for the next 5 years at that point. So it turned out that 14-week of a detox for him was the very best thing. He was able to reset his brain. And so we really do believe in doing the detoxes. That's really important. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But after that, he did come back and finish college. So he came back and now he speaks for our organization. So you can go into our Connect subscription group and find videos from Adam. He does a great job of talking to kids, and he explains what happened to him and all that. So, but the first thing is that you have to get this reset. You have to also initially, when you're changing your game plan, you have to get educated. Yep. You cannot do this without having the stability of that foundation of the education pieces that you need. And you don't have to go to nursing school, and you don't have to be a neuroscientist, but you do need to understand some basic stuff.
That's good.
And that's what we're here for. We have tons of material on our website. You can just read tons of stuff there, but we have our books and our material that we have as well. We've created a parent course, and we've created a student course. We also have a preschool book in the making right now. It's going to be out in a few months. And we have a course that we'll be doing for high school kids next year. But the student course right now goes for many different ages. We have it online, which is kind of ironic, but we're using our technology as a tool, which it should be used as a tool and not a toy. And then we also have it in print, and that just came out just this month. It came out in print as a curriculum. So education is so key. Yeah. If you can't get your school to do this curriculum in your school, then you get the textbook and you do it yourself, and you explain to your kids what's happening. you will feel this huge relief off your shoulders. It's like if you're a coach for a sports team and you can explain to them why certain exercises are really important for their core, why they need to eat a certain way, why sleep affects their performance on the field. If you can explain those things, you're going to get much better compliance from your
Yes.
team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're not saying that you are educating your kids so they get a vote. They do not get a vote. You're the coach. You make the final decision, right? But you're going to share the knowledge with them so you can actually have logical conversations about this, and you're not
Yes.
throwing things, and you're not getting angry. And everybody has this myth that if I tell my kids they can't have a smartphone, or if I say we're not going to be a gaming family, that your kids are going to hate you and they're going to like yell at you all the time and throw. That's not true. Because what the next step is that you need to do once you understand the information and you get educated and you maybe go through your detox is you got to start doing stuff with your kids again. You got to start
Oh,
creating
I
a
love that
family.
advice.
Yeah, you've got to start creating a family structure where y'all do more things as a family because screens are so divisive and they detach us all from our family. So some people can do it, quite honestly, and some people can't. And there are going to be people that are listening today that have all the intentions in the world, and they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, that means that I'm not going to be able to be on my screen as much, and I'm going to have to shut my
Mm,
laptop at 3 o'clock when my kids come home." And
mm,
you're going to say things like, but I work and I have to have my social media all night long." And you know what? You're going to have
mm.
to make some sacrifices.
That's
And
good.
when your kids are home and when they're under your roof and before they head out for college, you'll have to do what we did with our younger 3 kids. And we put a lot of things aside. We spent more money on activity things like we bought a trampoline for the backyard.
Yeah.
We structured things in our
Yeah.
life. We spent more time on vacations. We did things that really nurtured those relationships better.
Mm,
And I feel always so bad for my oldest son. And we've made our peace over it. And he's really sweet. He says, "Mom, just tell as many parents as you can so it won't happen to them." But Adam really missed out a tremendous amount of his childhood memories that are just gone. So
yeah.
after you do the detox, you've got to, if your kids are already on the devices, maybe you're listening and you're feeling like, "Oh my gosh, I already messed it all up. They're already addicted. What do I do?" You can, wherever you are today, you can make changes today
Yes.
that will
Yes.
help. Don't ever throw the towel in. You will have to roll your sleeves up, and there will be
Mm,
some hard work. And the longer that they've been dependent on their screens, the harder it is to reverse it. But any family can do it. It is not that hard, but it's just this simple act of removing certain pieces of
mm.
access. And it is video games, it is smartphones. Your kids are fine with a flip phone. They do not need social media. Remember, it was never designed for them. And it's pornography. So those are the 3 areas that you got to focus on.
And
And
let me get specific here, Melanie, so I understand what you're saying. I know you're not anti-screens or necessarily anti-social media. What age? But it sounds like you are anti-social media to a certain age. And so, could you help us understand
absolutely.
what ages should abstain? When should they start participating? Are you 100% against video games at younger ages? Could you help help me? I don't
Yeah.
know what the exact details are,
Yeah.
and I'd love
No,
to know.
that's a really good question. And so you have to realize that technology is always going to be smarter than you, no matter what, right? They're spending billions of dollars on their technology to keep you hooked. So the persuasive design is super, super strong. You will never be able to, let's just get this straight. You will never be able to keep a kid from getting really dependent on a screen. Uh, it- you know, Pac-Man in the arcade years ago, you ran out of quarters, you went home on your bike and you hung out with your friends. That's very different than what we're talking about today. The games today have no stopping point. Porn
Mm,
has no stopping point. Social media has no stopping point. So
mm,
any of the technologies that have no stopping point are the ones that you're worried about. Little House on the Prairie, if you put a DVD in, that has a stopping point, right?
mm,
If you watch a baseball game on TV with your kids, that's a really fun thing to do. If you watch a documentary, if you have family movie night, that's all fine. That's not what we're talking about. It is not the actual screen is evil. That's not it. It's the type of technology. So for video games, we say no video games. Absolutely.
Excellent.
And we have plenty of families that want to try. Oh, Melanie, look, I can moderate. I can moderate. And I will tell you, no, you cannot. You cannot moderate. You think you can, just like you think you can multitask. You can't multitask. You cannot moderate. Once a child starts getting that taste in his mouth over that video game, and even toddlers, even 9-year-old, 10-year-old, oh, they're just playing Fortnite. That's just a cartoon. No, it's not. Fortnite is one of the most violent games on the market. If you haven't played it, go play it and you'll see what I'm talking about. And your kid is going to get so addicted to it. And all their friends are going to be playing. So then they're going to have to play because all their friends play. You have to step out of that world. You have to step out of that world. And what will happen is you will replace it. So we are not going to take stuff away from our kids and not replace it.
Yeah.
My boys just graduated from high school. They did not have smartphones. They are perfectly fine. They did not have, and they're in college now. They still don't have social media. They are perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that the older your kids get, the worse it gets on social media. So you may have a 5th grader and you may think, oh, it's so cute. Look what they're doing on social media. Well, all of a sudden it's not going to be cute anymore. And they're not going to get smarter. They're going to just get more looped into it. So pretty soon they're going to be on TikTok doing crazy things that you don't want them to do that they would never have done when they were in 5th grade.
Such helpful stuff. And I want to tie this back to what you said before. If you have the education, you will then be more motivated. So the person that says, I can manage it, well, then you don't really know what it is that you're managing, because if you knew, you would. And then I would say this, real compassion, we have to have a real definition of love, which I mentioned before as well. If you really love your kids, not if you want to be popular with your kids, but if you really love them, you are the one that steps in and says no and takes us away. So I love that. I love that it's simple. If it can have a conclusion to it, then it's something that let's watch a movie. That's okay. And you can watch too many movies too, right? There's moderation. Sure. But things like video games that have no ending, social media, and obviously pornography more, I mean, it's just deleterious in terms of what it's exposing you to. And that's so clear. All right.
Well, it's all about the access. It's all about the access. And so let me just
keep going.
Let me just say one piece that's really important. When you're thinking about the ScreenStrong lifestyle, and that's what we call it. It's a ScreenStrong lifestyle. It's a low tech for kids at certain ages. And it does go all the way through adolescence, which includes the 48 months of high school. 48 months, it's not that long. It is not that long. Your kids do not need to be on social media at all during high school. But what you have to do as a parent, right? Because you're a coach now. And you got to think, what does my team need? Well, what they need when they're kids and they're adolescents and they're all the way through high school and even the early years of college, they need a lot, right? They got to learn a lot. So if you think of a pitcher of water and it's empty, right? And you've got different things you're going to pour into that pitcher. Are you really going to pour in 2 or 3 hours of addictive screen time every day when they should be learning life skills? They should be exercising. They should be spending time with you. They should be reading. Reading at the age of 15 for pleasure, reading for pleasure at the age of 15 is the #1 predictor of academic success your whole life.
Wow.
If you don't teach your kids how to love books, if you don't teach them how to have a solid EQ, which is that emotional skill to be in a room and read the room and control your emotion and understand the person standing next to you emotion, if you don't teach them all that stuff now, they are going to have the hardest time if they ever leave your house, because we know that gamers and kids that are addicted to their phones, they have a really hard time launching.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to say to you is there's not enough time to do what you need to do if screens aren't even there. That's why you have to really think carefully, because every minute on a video game and every minute on a phone that they waste is just a minute that they should be doing something else. And honestly, doing nothing is better than hanging out on an addictive technology. They will have the rest of their life to hang out on it. And hanging out on it now does not prepare them to use it wisely later. That is one of the biggest myths. The way that you teach your kids how to use social media correctly is the way that you and I learned how to use it correctly. And that was, we were adults when we got it, because we learned how to be a real person before we had social media. So that's how you teach kids to do it. They will not miss anything. And in our group, we talk about how you get your community together. So if you get 4 or 5 families together, or maybe even 2 or 3 families together, you get this course, you go through this, you have a small group, you go through it, you all get on the same, same lane in your decision to hold back. And then your kids all get to play together. Your kids are going to be fine. Your kids don't need 100 friends. They only need about 5, if that many friends. And you got to
This
create
is
this
so
community
good.
now.
We are going to take a break, and when we get back, I want to get more into this curriculum. If you could tell us a little bit about this, and then some final tips. You have been listening to powerful, helpful truth from Melanie Hempe at ScreenStrong. Definitely go and check out this ministry. We'll take a break. When we're back, more with Melanie Hempe. And we're back with Melanie Hempe and ScreenStrong. This was one thought that I had too, is Melanie's focus came because her son was struggling and really struggled. And definitely, if you're here in part 2, haven't listened to part 1, it is essential to best understanding part 2. So go and watch that. But I would say this, the wealthiest people I know do not engage on social media. Some of them have accounts. I'm thinking of one guy, his business last year did $120 million. He has no social media. And the wealthiest people I know don't engage. And I think there's this false idea that, I'll get a channel and monetize. Social media is the place to make money. And it really is like believing, in my opinion, that the lottery is the place to make money. Yes, there's 1 or 2 people that have a big following, but the rest of the people, most people's lives are just being destroyed by it. And I love what you were talking about for your children, but then also as adults, we've got to replace this time that we're going like this with all the world that God made. And one other thing I would add here is I feel like it's a reverse of the Tower of Babel. So the devil got everybody together building this one tower and not taking dominion of the earth. And God said, no, I want you to go out and enjoy my whole world. You're here building this little tower. There's a whole world to be enjoyed. And I feel like we're doing the same. We're in this little world and we feel like we're building something big, and all we've done is look at a screen. And so anyways, I don't know if you had some ideas for just adults as well of what they may need to think through. And then I do want to get to your curriculum, and we don't have a ton of time, but where do you want to go, Melanie?
Well, so that's a really good point that you made, that one of the first things we have to realize is in order to make a change in our home, we have to move our life as well as our kids' life back to the natural world. That's really our goal here. And we have to get rid of this idea that social media is a mandatory thing, or that video games is mandatory. I used to think that it was a mandatory thing, and that's what got me in trouble. It is not mandatory. So and you're not just dropping off and drop whatever. My younger kids who didn't grow up with their own social media accounts, they know all about social media. Your kids are going to know all about the things. Nobody is being overprotected. Nobody is like stuck on an island somewhere at all. That is not what's happening. So for parents, we just have to realize that, our kids we get up in the morning, the kids go to school. We have a whole day to work. We have a lot of time to work. We've got to really protect the hours that we are together with our families. And we cannot allow our kids to grow up and just see us in front of a screen all the time, or see us in the car on our phone all the time. Your teenager will do the same thing. And when they're driving, they're going to do exactly what you're doing in the car when you're on your phone. So there's little things like that. When my kids were in school, I made a point to shut my laptop lid at 3:00. And then I usually opened the oven and made things because, they were boys and they were hungry all the time and they always had their friends over here. So, and you have to look at your kids' social life and do what you can to invest in that. We had young boys over at our house all the time. All their friends were over here all the time. I cooked dinners for them. We always made our house kind of the place to be. And everybody knew that we were not going to be on screens. So you do have to get your mindset different. And again, focusing on the life skills is so important. Anytime in our house, when there was something to fix, I would ask one of the kids to research it, figure it out, how to fix it, whether it was the water heater, or the clothes dryer, or whatever, or the car, whatever, yard work, cleaning your house. There's so many things that your kids need to be doing. If you're a mom right now and you're doing the dishes while your son is playing Fortnite, you're in big trouble. That is a big warning sign. There's so many life skills. If you just fill their life with life skills and having fun with their family and reading good books, then there's not going to be any time for screens. So the thing that you start with, like we said a minute ago, is education. And it's really important. This is our Kids, Brains, and Screens.
I want to see the book. Before you get to the book, I have one anecdote I want to add. I worked for Dr. Ben Carson as his faith outreach advisor for president. He grew up with a single mom who allowed them to watch 30 minutes of television a week. That was it.
Yes.
And you had to have book reports finished, and she would mark the book reports that they would write. Later, he found out his mother was illiterate. She couldn't even read it, but she'd put red marks on the paper. An amazing woman. Hey, only 30 minutes a week. I mean, that type, and you look at Ben Carson today, and an amazing man who's been used by God in this nation. So great anecdote there. All right. So our curriculum, your curriculum, tell us a little bit about it, Melanie.
So this was born out of about 8 years of work with kids and what they needed to know and what they responded to the most. It is a 300-page textbook. It's all full color. We have done a lot of work with the illustrators. So the illustrations are absolutely beautiful, as you can see. This first chapter, I'll just show you this one. It goes all into brain science. It talks about the neural development and how brain cells work. And then we talk about pruning. We go through step by step, and I think that you can see how beautiful all the art is. But like, here's one page that has all of these things that build your brain, right? So wouldn't you want your kids to know the activities that they need to build their brain? And then we have like a whole section on executive function skills. So this is not your run-of-the-mill graphic novel, but it does kind of look like a graphic novel, which is why kids are so interested in it. We go through all the science. We talk about the addiction science, about why we can't put down our phones, why we can't put down our video games. And it becomes sort of a third-party surrogate in a way. So when you're talking to your kids about this issue, you don't feel so emotional about it. It's not so one-on-one. Oh my gosh, they're going to start throwing darts at me. That you say, oh no, let's see what the doctors say about it. We have this is all vetted by physicians. We have quotes in here by physicians. We talk about this stress pathway. I want to show you this. If your kids understand this alone, the idea of what happens to their stress hormones when they're on a screen, and they can understand the roller coaster effect of that will help you so much.
Oh yeah.
You will no longer feel like the Army Sergeant parent. You're going to just feel like you're the coach, you're helping them. And if when I'm in doing presentations to large groups, and I can even ask you this question, I always ask the audience to think about the coach that they had growing up that they loved the most,
Yeah.
right?
Good.
And you think about that one coach, it is not the one that let you get away with everything. It is the
Yeah.
one
That
that saw your potential, that believed in you,
That's
that made you
good.
do hard things, that set the bar really high. And in our culture, we have lowered the bar for our kids. There is no bar anymore, by the way. I mean, if your child can't go without social media for 48 months of high school, then you've got bigger problems, right? That you have to deal with. So
That's good. Our time is up, Melanie. I'm so sorry, but how about let's definitely have you back on the show. You are a wealth of knowledge, and I just want to thank you for coming. Finish what you were about to say, though, and then tell us where we can get this book. I believe it's available on Amazon, and as we wrap up. But I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for what you're doing and educating people. And some people know it's a good time to talk about it. I do wear glasses a lot. I have nerve damage in my brain. Our family knows a lot about the brain because of some of the handicaps that I actually have. And everything you're saying, I'm like, yes. Good stuff.
it's a stimulation.
Yeah.
And we even have a section in this book that talks about what overstimulation does to your brain, so you can explain it to your kids. So to get this book, you can get single copies on Amazon. I highly recommend, though, if you want to get a copy for your classroom or for your homeschool co-op, that you can reach out to us. You can go to kidsbrainsandscreens.com. You can go to that website, or you can go to ScreenStrong.org. It will link you over there to that website. But either way, you can get the book. I highly recommend getting the print version because of what we know about the brain. We know that the print version and reading something on paper is going to be so much more effective than the digital version. And I also have a podcast every week. I bring on specialists. I bring on doctors. We have a psychiatrist that comes on all the time, one of our physician partners, and that's called ScreenStrong Families. And we are every week unpacking this problem and about the solution, about how you can start to make a difference in your home. And I promise you, you can do it. If you're listening today and you're feeling discouraged, please don't feel discouraged. I just want to encourage you that even just by listening today, you have learned so much than most people out there know. So we've got to change that. We've got to get this out to as many families as we can and get this information out in the public as far and wide as we can. So please share our material and share our site.
What an amazing Christian mom. We're so grateful for your work, Melanie. You are watching the Biblical Worldview Show, a ministry of RenewaNation. I am Ben Shetler, and I am just thrilled with the many guests that we have on. I second that. Go to ScreenStrong.org. Check out what they're doing, and then definitely give us a comment and a review on our subscribe to our show as we continue to bring great guests and other topics like this to the forefront, and we look at life through the lens of Scripture. Thank you so much for joining us today.